Everybody's Dr. Joe on this Wealth Wednesday. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope you had a great time. I hope you had a good week so far. It's getting kind of cold over here in the DC area, but still, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. So I'm sure you're all getting ready and looking forward to that. And I certainly am. And looking forward to the time to relax, spend time with family, friends, associates, and just chilling, really. Anyway, I don't want this session. I know everyone's kind of busy today, so I'm going to keep this session a little briefer and so on. Anyway, so it's Thanksgiving Eve today, and I had a good week watching the World Cup. I'm into soccer, so I'll be watching the World Cup. Great games, and looking forward to tomorrow's game with Ghana. And the US had a good game yesterday. And also on Friday, they played. The US is playing England, so that should be an interesting game. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about what do successful real estate investors look for when buying houses. What do successful real estate investors look for when they're buying houses? That's going to be the topic for today. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, as I said, the market is kind of shifting, and my position is that it's a good time to kind of get your finances together and maybe acquire several properties because there's a window of opportunity, and that window, since there's less demand, less competition, buy is a lot more reasonable, and so it's a good time, I think, to buy, especially especially if you can hold on to it while the market kind of while there's turbulence, because at some point in time in the future the market will come back and the window will close again. So the best time is always to buy when everybody is not buying. So this is a good time. So I want to kind of talk about what do I look for, what do successful real estate investors look for when looking to buy a home to rent. And so I'm going to break it down into four main areas. So let me bring it up on the screen. So the title is "What Do Successful Real Estate Investors Look For When Buying Houses?" And that's going to be the topic today. And I kind of break it down to four main areas or categories. And category number one is location. Obviously, location is the key. Next thing is cash flow. If you're looking to rent, obviously you want to talk about cash flow. Hopefully you're going to at least break even, if not get positive cash flow. Certainly don't look for negative cash flow. And the other thing you want to look for is the condition of the property. And then finally, what I think is important is the appreciation potential. So they're the four things which I look for, and I think successful investors look for when they are looking to buy a home to rent. And so I kind of go through each of those in more detail. Obviously, there's a lot more other factors, and which you can consider, and there's numerous amounts of them. But I just kind of break up the discussion today into four main categories. As usual, we're going to have Q&A. So if you have some questions, don't forget to put them in the chat box, and I'll be more than happy to try to address them during the latter part of today's live stream. Again, today's live stream, hopefully we kind of keep it brief, because I know it's Thanksgiving and people have got other things, more important things to do than watch me. And so on. So let's talk about what do successful real estate investors look for when buying a home. So the first one I said is location. Obviously, location is absolutely critical, as the old saying goes for real estate: location, location, location. And so, what do we mean by location? First of all, on the high level, is what city or what geographical area do you want to invest in? What's this at the macro level? Is what state, and then you zero in what city, and even go down to even neighborhoods and things like that. So what do I look for in terms of the location? Several things. First of all, on a larger level is the economy, the strength of the local economy, or the resilience of the local economy in good times and bad times. History, if you go through the historical records, you should be able to know how your locality does or fares in upswings and also in downswings. That's going to be important. Is there significant job growth? Is there growth potential in terms of jobs? Employers moving in or employees moving out of your area? Are people moving in or are people moving out? Is this a favorable place to live and work? These are all important things. Crime in terms of the location, that's important for some people. Obviously, if you're looking for long-term renters, a lot of tenants don't want to live in an area of high crime. So crime rates, tourism, that could be a factor for you. What's the economy like in terms of locally tourism? Are people going there? Is it a desirable place? Is it a destination place? If you're going to do things like Airbnb regulations, Airbnb, sorry, then you want to know about the regulations associated with your area. I know in a lot of places now they're kind of clamping down on Airbnb. I know in Washington D.C. they clamped down there. I think it was June of this year, where you cannot do Airbnb unless it's 30 days or plus stays. So you can't do Airbnb for less than 30. In order to do that, you have to have a short-term rental license, and you has to be your primary residence, and so on. So that kind of stopped out a lot of short-term rentals in Washington. I think the same thing is going across many cities as well, many jurisdictions. So if you're going to go into that arena, the short-term rentals, you want to make sure that you don't buy into a place and find out that later on you can't actually exercise what you're looking for. So, obviously, there's a city level, and then you go down a bit more deeper, and you go into the neighborhood levels. Find out what are the neighborhoods in the particular areas that you're interested in. What are the better ones? What are the worst ones? How do they perform over a period of time? Are people moving in? Is it got a reputation as a desirable neighborhood or not a desirable neighborhood? Are they in a state of serious decline or upswing? Is it a war zone, or is it not a war zone? I mean, some people that's what they specialize in, is war zones. I know there's this guy. Long time he had a course. I forgot his name now. I think it's Rob. He had a course called War Zone Riches. I mean, he's specialized in war zones in Baltimore, of all places. So, I'm not particularly into war zones. I found that the tenants that I'm trying to attract, they just don't want to live there. So, but I know people do well over there, but I just don't, and therefore I tend not to, buy in those areas. Is it going to be easy or hard to sell after you acquire the property? So these are some of the things that are people moving in or people moving out? Are there a lot of for rent signs? Are there a lot of for sale signs? That's important to know, because that will affect your ability to possibly rent your property. Is there a mass exodus from that neighborhood? What are the crime stats like? Check the recent sales stats in your MLS. Ask appraisers, ask property managers how things are going, how things are in that particular area. And, so talk to other investors and wholesalers about the particular area who are familiar with that area that you're thinking of investing, and they'll give you some cues. So, so that's, these are some of the factors in terms of the location, because one thing I know is that you make most of your money, in my opinion, through appreciation. And the appreciation is heavily connected to the location of your property. So if you want to make money, then I say go buy in areas where it's more likely to appreciate in value. But that's just me. I'm going to talk about the other characteristics in a second, and so on. So location is number one. And then the question, I suppose, is what about the likelihood of getting a good deal in that area? Because if it's a desirable location, then the chances are other people also want to live there as well. Other investors trying to buy there as well. So that's the other thing, is what's the likelihood of you getting a good deal in these locations? And the good thing is that right now the market is kind of soft compared to, say, 6 months ago. So your chances of getting a better deal or good deal is much higher because it's just less competition. A lot of investors are kind of hitting the sidelines. They're taking a pause. A lot of rehabbers are kind of slowing down because people just aren't buying. So if you're if your exit strategy is heavily linked to selling the property and people aren't buying, then you're going to be potentially stuck with that asset after you complete it. So a lot more investors are becoming more conservative in terms of what they buy and where they buy. So so therefore, you know, especially if you take the long-term approach, the buy and hold strategy, like what I do, this is a good time to enter the fray, and you stand a better chance of getting good deals now because just lot less competition. In fact, we went over on Saturday, I think it was. Yeah, Saturday, I looked at a couple of houses, and you know, in solid neighborhoods in Washington D.C. And so you know, the competition is less. So hopefully, you know, there'll be some opportunities coming down the pike, as especially as we enter the winter months, where the real estate market tends to slow down anyway. So there are lots of neighborhoods where you can look into, and but now is the time to look. Obviously, get your finances together, make sure that you are ready, make sure you have the systems in place such that if you find something, you can be in a position to, what's it called, pull the trigger. So you know what I do? I do the ABC strategy, which is what I coined up, which I buy C class properties in B neighborhoods and rent to A tenants. So I look for houses that need work in B neighborhoods. So C properties in B neighborhoods. So therefore, I can upgrade or improve the house and therefore turn that C property into a B property. It's in a B neighborhood, which is a desirable neighborhood, which allows me to attract what I call A tenants. Tenants who's going to take care of the property, pleasant to deal with, pay the rent, and hopefully stay a long time. So these are some of the things, and you know, to look for in terms of the neighborhood. That's number one. Number thing is location. Okay, so location. What can I buy it for? How much will it cash flow? How much will the house be worth once it's all fixed up? And how extensive will the rehab that I'm going to need to do on this property? So these are some of the things that you need to consider when you're talking about the location, and so on. So that's number one, is the location. Number two is anyway, yeah, enter your questions in the chat box if you got some questions. This is going to be a condensed version of the Wealth Wednesdays, so if you got some questions, please put it in the chat box and I'll be able to answer them very shortly. So number two is cash flow. What do I look for? What do successful real estate investors look for is cash flow. That's number two. What is the potential of this property if you were to buy it? You know, the goal is obviously positive cash flow, whereby, you know, after you take away your expenses, you're able to actually generate income from the property, positive income. So you want ideally properties that's going to be positive cash flowing, and it's going to cover all your mortgages, going to cover your expenses, it's going to cover your taxes, your insurance, the maintenance, is going to cover vacancies. All those factors need to be taken into account to determine the numbers in terms of the cash flow potential. Then the other thing is, you know, it's local versus non-local. So some people, you know, especially if you live in a high-price market like we are doing in Washington, D.C., it's just very hard to get cash flow because you're paying so much. So some people tend to go, what's it called, long distance. And I'm not really a great fan of that, but, you know, it is what it is. And I'm pretty sure that wherever you are, wherever you listen to this live stream from, all you got to do is go 30, 40, 50 miles, you know, and then you're in a completely different market. So you don't have to really go across the country. You can just travel sometimes 30 or 40 miles away, and then you're in a completely different market in terms of location, in terms of price point and things like that. So then the next question becomes, how do I get cash flow? And one of the best ways to do that is to add value, is to do something to the house such that you can increase the rent from the property, which will allow you obviously to get more cash flow. You know what I do? I tend to add bedrooms because when I do Section 8, the premise is that the rent that you you can charge is based on two factors: the location, and then secondly the number of bedrooms. So if you want cash flow, you can add bedrooms. Last one we did, it was a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, I think it was. And we're able to turn that thing into a 6-bedroom, 4 bath. So went from 2.5 to 6.4. So we added 4 more bedrooms, and therefore able to turn this negative cash flow asset into a positive cash flowing asset. And we have a 6-bedroom voucher holder in the house. And in fact, I went to see her last week. My goodness, she kept the place immaculate condition. Her family is very, very happy there, and she intends to stay there for a long time. She's part of the community, and so on. So these are some of the things you can do to get cash flow, especially if you do the Section 8 program, is to add bedrooms and so on. Now, if you're an apartment building, maybe you can do other things like coin operated washing machines. Maybe you get some cash flow from there. Maybe you can rent some storage, or maybe have some parking that you could rent, rent, I suppose, spaces in the parking lot. So these are some of the things that you can do to increase the chance of cash flow. Some landlords, they put solar panels in their buildings and charge what's it called? Free, all-inclusive, whereby the utility is free electric. Essentially, because the electric's included, they can increase the rent. Okay, and but they put solar panels, so the solar panels essentially is giving the free electricity. So that's a couple of creative things that some landlords have done to increase the cash flow. But the bottom line is this: you can calculate cash flow. There are lots of different spreadsheets, there are lots of different tools that you can use in order to determine, what's the chance of cash flowing your property when you do the analysis. But check that out. But again, my thing is that, the downside with spreadsheets and calculators and things like that is that a deal may look good when you plug it into an Excel spreadsheet, but the problem is that all of that stuff becomes irrelevant if you can't find good tenants. If you can't find tenants that's going to take care of your property, pay the rent, and stay there a long time. So that's the only downside of these calculators. It tends to ignore the human side of this thing, and that's the reason why I focus more on the human side, because that's the key to my success, and so on. So cash flow is number 2 in terms of the criteria that I look for, and so on. So so far we've talked about 2. We talked about location, and these are the criteria that successful landlords look for when they consider what to buy, where to buy, and things like that. It's locations, number 1. Where is this located? What's the macro community, micro level community, neighborhood, the city, state, and so forth, and so on. Number 2 is the cash flow potential of this asset. These are the 2 things so far that are very, very important that successful landlords or investors look for when they are considering buying a house or property to rent. So number 3, again, don't forget to put your questions in the chat box. I'll be going to those very, very shortly. This is the condensed version today. And number 3 is the factor that successful real estate look at for is the condition of the property. What is the condition of the property? Because that will determine whether you should buy it or whether you shouldn't buy it. Obviously, if you have the ability to turn this thing around, then it could be a candidate for purchase. If you don't have the systems, you don't have the contractors, you don't have the relationships to do this, then maybe you may not want to take on a house or a property that needs so much extensive work that you kind of go over your head. So the condition of the property is the 3rd factor that I think is very important that successful real estate investors consider. And so obviously, I'm a firm believer, never buy anything without looking at it first. I bought one house. I was talking to somebody. When did I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago. Throughout my whole career, I think I bought a couple of houses which I hadn't seen before I purchased, before I put it under contract. So most of the times I actually go in physically, check the place out before I put a contract. But this one's two of them I didn't. And the reason why was because I was in an auction once and this house came up. I was going to the auction to look at something else. And this particular property showed up and the bidding started like 40K. So, I mean, I thought, well, 40K, that's cheap. So how can you go wrong buying a 40K house? So I ended up buying this house and I went afterwards, after the auction, to see the property. It wasn't so bad. I still own the house. I think it's worth like 200 and something now. But yeah, so I generally don't buy houses without seeing them. So you want to kind of assess the condition of the property. And, if you're not comfortable, you may want to get a contractor there with you. So the contractor can kind of, walk through the house. You can get a home inspector. Home inspector will tell you what's the condition of the property and some of the things that you may want to consider, whether it be structural, whether it be foundational, whether it be electrical, plumbing, HVAC, flooring, building, exterior, the interior of the roof. All these things, will determine whether, you can handle it or whether it's something that you may want to pass on, the condition of the property. If you don't have the right confidence, or if you don't have the confidence, then you may want to surround yourself with people that do, whether it be home inspectors, contractors, other seasoned investors, and things like that. So look for, the good thing I like about buying houses that need work is that you can force appreciation on the asset by doing certain types of work, especially if you perform high value, items like the kitchen, the bathrooms, and things like that. Because every dollar, the goal is that every dollar you spend, you should get at least $1.50 back in terms of appreciation, in terms of value add, and so on. So, it's nothing wrong with buying houses that need work, as long as you are able to, put the team in place to do it, and you don't get too much over your head. And it's a great way whereby you can force appreciation on the asset. So that's number 3. And then finally, number 4 is appreciation potential. Now, I know a lot of investors say, well, Dr. Joe, you can't always guarantee appreciation. Appreciation is the icing on the cake. I'm into appreciation. I like to buy in areas where history tells you can get appreciation, because the real money, in my opinion, is through appreciation. Yes, it's nice to get a few $100s cash flow, but the real value, I think, is owning something over a period of time, which increases in value by a lot, several, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And some markets you can get that. Obviously, we go through downturns and upturns, but generally, some markets are able to get appreciation more so than others, and so on. So that's appreciation potential. So, some investors, they just focus purely on cash flow, which is okay. I like to get cash flow and appreciation, because to me, that's the perfect combination, and so on. It's not, you don't always have to pick one or the other. I think if you're savvy enough, you may be able to get both. It's where the money is. So obviously appreciation depends a lot on several factors: the location, the neighborhood, the condition of the property, the neighborhood, and so on. These are all factors that will decide whether you're going to get appreciation. Jobs, the economy, the local economy, the market, interest rates. These are all factors. But if possible, look for markets where history tells you that you're more likely to get appreciation if you're looking for appreciation. Or you may want to do is to pick what we call emerging markets. These are markets, secondary markets, that got potential for growth, especially as it pertains to jobs and things like that. So these are some of the things that you may want to consider. And so essentially, therefore, my friends, the 4 things we talked about in summary is that, savvy investors look for several things. when they are considering a house, what to buy, where to buy, and so on. So I broke down the discussion into 4 areas: location, cash flow, the condition of the property, and then finally the appreciation potential. So successful real estate investors look at multiple factors when they're considering what to buy, where to buy, as it pertains to a rental property. The buy and hold strategy, to me, it works. That's what I specialize in. It's time tested. You can build wealth. You can get cash flow. You can build a legacy, and you can sort of. It allowed me anyway to be able to transition from being a full-time W-2 employee into a full-time real estate investor. It's through my rental properties and essentially looking into these factors, these 4 factors, as to what I bought, where I bought, how much I paid for it, and the strategies to hold on to these assets. So successful investors look at multiple things. As I said before, I've shared 4 today. It's a good start, a good place to start, and but stay focused on the prize. Real estate's a great business. I am so eternally grateful I got into this thing, and hopefully you can learn from some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the things which I've shared with you today on your journey as well. So that, my friends, is it for the education. And let's have a look. Comments. So I'm going to try and wrap it up because it's kind of getting close to Thanksgiving Eve. And I know you guys are looking forward to spending time with family and friends. So I'm going to wrap it up today, and I'll see you, my friends, next Wednesday for another session of Wealth Wednesday. Take care. Bye for now.